My name is Ed Barney. I'm a Research Uptake Manager at the Department for International Development. The Evidence into Action team works within DFID to try and embed a culture of evidence-informed policymaking across the organisation. Now, DFID is a department with over 3,000 staff, based in 28 countries across a number of continents. So that's actually quite a difficult task to try and embed a culture across a whole organisation. But we try and think of it through 3 different strands of work. So firstly, we've got to improve the supply of research, because if you can't find it and there aren't systems available and you can't access it, well then you can't use research evidence in your decision making. So there's a whole range of things we do to try and build information systems to provide easy access to research, to improve the way our own research portfolio communicates to the rest of the organisation, and to also change the products that we use to provide evidence to our decision makers. So moving away from standard academic products like journal papers to more custom designed things like policy briefs, systematic review summaries and evidence papers, which are designed with the decision maker in mind. It's about building demand for evidence use. So working not with researchers but on the other side of the spectrum with the actual decision makers, be that policy advisors, economics advisors, data analysts, to make sure that there's a culture whereby they actually want to use evidence. So that involves going out across the organisation, doing things like training, providing online courses that are bespokely designed for our advisors, and also incentivising our senior management to champion the use of evidence across the division, so that people really feel supported to take the time out of their busy schedules to feel that evidence is an important factor that they need to consider. And the third and final strand of work that we do to try and improve evidence-informed policy making is really brokering and building links between researchers and policymakers, so that the research we're commissioning is designed with our policy priorities in mind, because there's a whole spectrum of research out there which, rightly so, isn't designed for government departments to use. But there's an expectation that the research we're commissioning, some of it, a small proportion of it, should be specifically commissioned with our policy needs in mind. So that's where we commission things like evidence maps or rapid evidence reviews to really get a quick assessment of a policy area, so that we can get our heads around the evidence base. Learns from failure, learns from success, to really understand what works. And DFID is no different. And it's a really pertinent question, because 2015 is the year of innovation and learning. It would be quite easy for me to paint a rosy picture of what goes on inside the organisation, but luckily we don't have to do that. The Independent Commission for Aid Effectiveness, ICAI, recently conducted a review of learning in DFID, and it wasn't all positive. They gave us an amber-red rating, which suggests there's a lot of room for improvement. They highlighted a number of areas whereby we're not quite representing good practice. One of those areas was the need to collaborate and share lessons, not just before we design a programme, but actually through the whole programme life cycle. So we're quite good at assessing the evidence base when we design a programme and get it up and running, but we're not necessarily good at sharing lessons throughout the programme life cycle, monitoring and evaluating as we go, getting advisors to really collaborate with people who are implementing similar programmes in different countries. It's also about changing the culture within the department, so that people feel confident enough to change their minds on the basis of new evidence. So it's quite easy to find evidence that's positive and reinforces what you're doing, but it's very difficult to admit that your programme, as a programme manager, is actually failing and that new evidence is showing this, and to change direction following the publication of new research or new findings from your programme. So it's really about being more confident in using evidence. A really important lesson that ICAI highlighted for DFID staff to take into account is the need to actually spend more time in country with partners, designing and adapting programs as they go. There was a recognition that sometimes UK-based staff don't have an appreciation of the context that programs are operating in. That's why it's really great to be here in Ghana this week to work with the partners in the VakaYiko Consortium to really understand the challenges that they're grappling with, some of the real successes that they've had during the first 2 years of the program. So a criticism that's often labelled at major donors, and rightly so, is that small NGOs, particularly southern-based partners, can't always access funding through new proposals, new calls, accountable grants, a whole range of mechanisms that just aren't directly available to southern-based partners and small NGOs. And this is a problem I think that the department acknowledges. I think in order to deliver positive development outcomes, it's really important that you're involving and building the capacity of organisations in the countries that you're working on. And I think there's a recognition that we need to collaborate more with southern partners. And that's why the BKIA model is so exciting, is because it's a consortium that consists of 5 different members based across a number of countries, all working together for the same objectives and aims in a collaborative fashion. That involves southern partners, a UK-based NGO, and a whole range of mechanisms are needed to make that work.